All right, joining us now, of course, he is fresh off, of course, the ASUN Championship and a trip to the NCAA Tournament, ASUN Coach of the Year, one of the top coaches, rising stars in the sport, who got a contract extension on the offseason, the head coach at UNF, our good friend, Jeff Conrad, back with us here at In the Circle on D1 Softball, powered by 643. So you had a nice offseason, right?
Yeah, it was good. It was busy, obviously, and a lot of stuff going on, a lot of moving parts. But yeah, it was good. It was a really obviously rewarding season, and one that I'm not going to lie, I really haven't spent much time thinking back on, just because once you get there once, the drive is to get there and do it again. And we really haven't spent a ton of time focusing on, what took place last year, and really just been kind of focused on what do we need to do to make sure we're right back in that exact same spot and have, an even better chance to, get into that super regional round.
Well, so you haven't really reflected on it, but what has the offseason been like when you've been on the recruiting trails and stuff? Because I remember when you won and you got to the NCAA, a lot of people were excited for you. I remember we had you right afterwards, and you said your phone blew up with a ton of messages. What's it been like traveling and seeing a lot of your peers? Because I would imagine you got a lot some pat of the backs and congratulations during the recruiting trails and the traveling this summer.
Yeah, it's been really really great experience. A lot of people reached out and congratulated us on a great year. And I think, the big thing, and I said this in the post-game press conference, once our season ended at South Carolina, is, I feel like North Florida softball is on the map now. And we show up, at places over the summer. People know who we are. They recognize us. We're no longer necessarily fighting for that space anymore where people are trying to figure out who we are. And it's really paid dividends for us recruiting. Obviously, really paid huge dividends for us in the transfer portal. But yeah, I mean, it does definitely feel like we've kind of taken that next step as a program, and people are very familiar now with who we are and what our program's all about, and a lot of excitement and wanting to become a part of it.
So it's changed. You could tell already that the immediate impact of last season's success is already paying dividends, even this offseason as you've been out recruiting and stuff. That's made an impact already.
Oh yeah, there's no question. I mean, I told, Mario and Amber once the season, ended, and we got back to the hotel in Columbia, and, we gave the kids an hour to go upstairs and shower and, get packed up, and we'll get on the road. And, I told Mario and Amber the same thing, like, you guys have an hour, and then that whole bus ride home, it's back to work, and it's, on to the next season. And, so the portal, coincidentally had opened up that same day, that we got knocked out in the regional final. And we went right to work on it, and just, you could tell right away the changes that had taken place coming off of our season. That first indication, I think, for us was off the transfer portal. Mario and I used to spend, we'd be hitting refresh every 15 minutes trying to see who's in, who's updated. We're sending out hundreds of emails. Maybe you're lucky you get a handful of responses back to those 100 emails that you sent out. And, this summer, right into that transfer portal season that started right when our season ended. We eventually got to a point where there were kids that were playing in the College World Series that eventually went into the portal, who were reaching out to us,
Sure.
like,
Wow.
we're interested in North Florida, so that whole dynamic changed, pretty quickly for us, where, people were now reaching out to us, and people were seeking us out, and people were expressing their interest in our program. Whereas it'd been a situation where we were constantly having to really dig and cultivate and try and get people interested in just having a conversation with us. So I mean, that difference was felt, pretty quick and pretty immediate. But even, extended out throughout the summer, and, you're at all these big tournaments, and, these coaches, are, hey, Jeff, how you doing? People that you haven't met yet, now they know who you are, and things like that. So, no question, like, having a run, like we did, having a season like we did, brought a lot of notoriety and attention to our school, our program. And, really paid huge dividends for us on the recruiting trail.
Well, I've got a lot of questions. We're going to talk a lot about your team outlook this year, but we have a surprise for you. A person that helped you make this run, and she has some questions for you. And she said when she kept telling me, "When are you going to talk to Coach Jeff?" Because I'll have some questions for him, and that's of course the great Allison Benning, who is joining us here now,
Hey,
our unofficial in the circle ASUN insider. She's going to be our correspondent this year. She's won many awards, so we wanted to surprise you, Coach Jeff. She wanted to surprise you, so here she is.
It's
hey.
awesome. Benny, great to see you.
Yeah, you too.
Happy for you and this great opportunity. I know this is a field that you really wanted to get into, and I think it's a great opportunity for you. And don't get me started on why you're not still playing. We probably don't want to get into all that. I've already probably pissed enough people off, but um, I'm happy that you're getting this great opportunity working with really good people, and it's obviously great to see you. And we look forward to seeing you here in November
Yes.
when you come and pick up all that hardware that's taking up half my office right now.
Sorry.
All right, Allison's got a few minutes before she gets to her other job that she has. But Allison, I know you've got questions, so the I'm giving you the platform. I think Coach Jeff's going to be very excited that he doesn't have to talk to me for a few minutes. He'll just talk to you instead. So go ahead and ask any questions you want of him.
He's used to talking to me. He calls me in his office all the time.
That's right. I actually noticed today there's something on my whiteboard. It still says Benny was here or something. I happened to just randomly saw that today. So
Oh, it's too funny.
Well, new team, what's the goal this year?
well, it's honestly, like, the goal hasn't changed. It's just a new job. I think your guys' group was obviously very bought into, the job at hand, do something that's never been done before. And this group has really been bought in on, hey, now it's time to do it again. So, I mean, really, new job, but very similar agenda, I guess, to what we had last year. And, I mean, you guys left a great example for this group to follow. And, they've really been bought in, and you guys have really let them understand that, hey, everything that we talk about doing is very achievable. You just got to be willing to do the work. And but yeah, it's the same mission, it's the same job. I mean, our kids, we've told them, hey, if our season doesn't end in some layer of the NCAA tournament, whether it's regionals, super regionals, the College World Series, then it's a disappointment. It's pretty much that black and white for us.
So a lot of new people. What's different about this team than last year's team?
Um, you know, there's obviously some differences, and it's really hard to compare, one team to the next. Um, it's obviously like not having people like yourself around and Hadley around are very noticeable. I think the leadership thing is something that, is still a work in progress for us. Obviously, as having been close with Hadley, I mean, I think she's as good a leader, as not only UNF softball has had, but probably any team at UNF has had.
Mhm.
So that's been a challenge for us here throughout the fall, and getting started here with the fall is really trying to get somebody to kind of assume that leadership role that, she did such a great job with. Obviously, like, trying to, fill the voids that you left, being able to impact the game in so many ways, pitching, hitting, all that. You don't replace, a player of your caliber with one player. We knew it was going to take multiple people to do that. But we've, like when I was talking to Eric before you came on, I mean, we really, I think, hit a grand slam in the transfer portal. And a lot of that, as we were talking about, is a credit to you guys and what you did to open up doors. And, there were plenty of kids that reached out to us and saw the path that you created coming from a Power Five school, transferring to a mid-major, having a great career, that were very interested in following that same path, continuing that legacy that you had kind of left. So it's a really good group. I mean, I really hate to try and compare one team to the next. I mean, obviously what you guys did, will have its rightful place in UNF softball history forever. Team 34, will always be the team that did that. And I think you guys have kind of made it be known for Team 35 that this is achievable. But it's a grind, and you got to embrace the grind. It's going to be hard. There's going to be tough moments. But yeah, I mean, we're excited. This is a really good team. We've really been impressed by what we've seen.
Last question. If you could pick any, so Coach Jeff has a superstition where he has to have the same girl read the lineup before every game if we keep winning. If you could pick one player to read the lineup for the rest of time, who would it be and why?
Wow.
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess it depends. Am I able to put that person in the lineup if they're going to read it, or is
Well,
it?
yeah, yes.
Well, I mean, it's obviously a no-brainer because I'm getting three players in one that I'm going to have you read in the lineup, and I'm going to put you, in the toe hole, and you're going to start in the circle for us, and
Hey.
you'll read the lineup. But yeah, I mean, the superstitions are still there. If anything, I feel like they've gotten worse, probably not gotten any better. So,
Okay, wait, I have one more follow-up question. Who's more superstitious, you or Coach Mario?
I think Mario's kind of like a closet superstition guy. I don't think he's fully bought into the superstition game the way I am. So,
Yeah.
I think it's definitely me.
I'll tell you my answer. I'd pick Cam Ponick because it's funny hearing her read the lineup every time.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
get a kick out of that one.
yeah. Well, I see the difference for me was when the rule became that I was able to actually use the person that read the lineup in the lineup, then that became the obvious thing because that means you have infinite eligibility, and I'm all for that. Um, but yeah, I mean, Cam was she was a unique lineup reader. We'll just say she didn't necessarily know what all the numbers correlated
No,
to on the field, and
she
that
was
made it
confused a few times, but
yeah,
it's okay.
made it really challenging.
It's impressive. I've learned something new about Coach Conrad. I didn't know about this superstition with the
He's
lineup card.
Yeah,
he's very superstitious. Like it's bad.
Really?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I'll get on the bus with a
He
cup
wears
from
his
Chick-fil-A.
sunglasses on the bus, by the way.
Yeah,
This guy wears his sunglasses on the bus, like inside the bus.
yeah. I'll
Actually,
get
I
on
knew
the
that. I knew that part from his UCF day. So that part, I mean, I can't criticize because I've done that in my past.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll get on the bus on, Friday with a Chick-fil-A cup, and when we pull back into campus on Sunday
Yep.
night, I'm still using that same
Yep.
Chick-fil-A cup.
This isn't
Yep.
crit. You see how good she is as a journalist? Look at that. Look at
Yeah,
what she's gotten
yeah,
out of you here.
yeah,
I mean, my goodness, she's giving you the hard nosed, burning questions here.
yeah. Nothing. I mean, no soft toss to get me loose. She's throwing the 68 up and in right off the bat.
Oh man, Allison, what has Coach Jeff meant to you?
Everything. He took a chance on me when I was 19 years old, and I was really struggling with confidence leaving my old school in the portal. I didn't know what to expect, and we took a chance on each other, and that's meant everything to me.
It's pretty good. High praise there. That's pretty
Yeah.
good.
Well, I mean, it's having I told people this when Benny decided to commit to us that she had a chance to really change the trajectory of our program, and I mean, she did that. I look forward to 5 years from now when we unveil that Allison Benning statue outside the
Shut
stadium.
up.
I love it.
But no, I mean,
Oh my God.
I mean, she's been, she's obviously made a huge impact on our program. I mean, she's obviously, being able to spend 2 years around her. I mean, she's obviously a phenomenal player, but she's an even better person. And,
Oh,
I mean, she came in right away just speaking my language. I mean, she's competitive from head to toe, and
yeah.
I like everything about that. So,
They also put like my picture on the hallway, and I don't know how I feel.
yeah,
Really
yeah,
nice. Look at
yeah.
you.
She's got a card in the hallway now of our building. It's all the kids that have had different accomplishments throughout their career. Morgan Clausen led the country in saves one year, so she's got a card. Navia Penrod was ASUN all-time career hits leader. She's got a card. Um, Benny, first Division I All-American in softball at UNF, and countless other things on top of it. ASUN Player of the Year, Pitcher of the Year. Scholar Athlete of the Year. I think she's even up for something with the ASUN, right, Benny? With the
Oh yeah, the
Woman of the
Woman of
Year or
the
something.
Year. I
Yeah.
won that.
Oh, you did?
Oh,
Yeah.
congrats! I
Great.
was wondering.
Yeah.
I
I
didn't.
won that, but now they're narrowing it down to 10. So I'm
Okay.
waiting to see if I make a top 10.
So like the national on the
Hmm.
national level. Okay, great. Yeah, I mean she's, I mean she and the thing that people need to understand too is Benny wasn't just a great player. I mean she did her work in the classroom. She's a great student. She's extremely bright. She's a total package. She's been a great. Hopefully UNF has been as beneficial to her as what
Yeah.
she has been to UNF because she's obviously had a tremendous impact on our program and what she's done.
I don't think I told you this, but my mom's an elementary school teacher, and there's been years in the past where she'll like email colleges to like this basically to get kids thinking about like the future. And
Mm,
so she emailed UNF and they sent like a box full of stuff. It was
really,
awesome. She loved it.
that's
So
awesome.
that was super cool. The president like saw to it. I was like, oh my gosh,
Yeah,
that was
that's
so cool.
awesome.
So
Yeah,
yeah, UNF has been great for me and my family. So
that's
it's been,
awesome.
yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
I mean, it was, I think, like Benny said, I mean, we just, we kind of took a chance on one another. And, and Benny she said it herself. I mean, she, was somewhat broken when she got to UNF. And, I mean, she worked hard to get back to who she's always been. And, was just a very coachable kid, she was just a great kid to have around. And, she's good for the occasional joke. And, if you're wearing your sunglasses on the bus, she'll, let you know, hey, it's nighttime, take your sunglasses off. So, she was great. I mean, she was, I think even more than what we thought we were getting. We knew we were getting a pretty good player. And, I think we got somebody that, has been a great representation of our program and really has kind of opened the door for a lot of people that, hey, it's not about the name on the front of the jersey, it's about the experience. And,
Hmm.
I think a lot of kids have really paid attention to what, Benny did and how she went about it. And, was kind of able to really resurrect her career and really have it end the way she always saw it ending. And, it just happened to be in a different uniform. So, uh,
Hmm.
I think it's a great example for, for a lot of people out there.
This is incredible stuff. The pod's only going to go downhill from here because Allison's got to go to work now.
Yeah.
But Allison, good stuff. You may just have to from now on. Maybe the next time Coach Conrad comes on the pod, I might just sit it out and you fill in and just run the show. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
literally.
Yeah. Well, I mean, is this maybe not going to become the Elo and Benny show? I mean,
I mean,
is it a
it's
co-host
all on her.
situation?
It depends on her schedule. She's a busy
I
young
don't,
lady. She's got lots going on.
I
But
have a lot of jobs right now.
yeah,
So yeah.
she
Yeah.
knows
Yeah.
she knows she has the offer already. She
Yeah.
knows anytime she wants, she comes
I'm,
on and she knows
yep.
we're gonna bother her a lot once the season gets going. That's all.
Well, if we're able to get this tournament started up with D1 softball, you got your color person and Allison Benning already lined
Ornament.
up. So yeah.
We might work something.
Yeah.
We'll work something out.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
Allison. I know we've kept you longer than we were supposed to, but
That's okay.
you've been fantastic. Always
Thank
enjoy
you.
seeing you. We'll talk soon.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye, Benny.
That is Allison Benny with her guest cameo here on In the Circle. We spent no expenses there. She wanted to surprise you, and she did. That was good stuff. But her
Yeah.
question, man, she gave you some hard questions there.
Yeah. I was kind of sitting change up. I know she's got a really good change up. I was sitting change up, and she was throwing me hard and in right
No, be
off the
careful what
bat.
you wish
So.
for. Yeah, be careful what you wish. If you thought she was going to go easy on you, no, she might go harder on you there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's a good segue because obviously we just saw the example. And people are going to ask you this question between now and the start of the season, especially when you have the local media about replacing her. And the answer is no. That's a dumb question. You don't replace somebody like that. That's too special of a human being. I've gone on record saying she's like on the Mount Rushmore to me of the A-Sun, not
Yeah.
just UNF. I mean,
Yeah.
I would argue she's the best UNF athlete ever, but I would
Mhm.
put her in the Mount Rushmore of softball and A-Sun history. With
Right.
what she's accomplished. So I'm not going to ask you to replace her, but I do think it's a good segue to dissect which position is it harder to fill the spot? Is it her pitching or her bat? Because that's going to be the question that it's so unique about her. So Well, let's start with the pitching side because I do know you feel confident about the depth you have, and just tell us a little bit about the pitching staff and who now this creates opportunities for others to step in.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's Benny had a huge impact on our pitching staff. I mean, they saw. I mean, there were times, and Benny, if she was still on, would tell you the same thing. There were times where she struggled with her hard stuff, but the one thing that she was always very consistent with was her changeup, her off speed stuff, and that. Our kids that were returning took notice of that, and every single one of them, when they got back in the fall, I asked them, "Would you really work on this summer? Where do you think you really improved?" And every single one of our returning pitchers said, my changeup is drastically better. And I think a lot of that has to do with them seeing the success that Benny had with her changeup and being able to change speeds and, so on and so forth. But yeah, I mean, we're excited about our circle. I mean, Amber, really talks highly about where our pitchers are at currently. We had two freshman pitchers last year that we felt were really, really good and going to have good productive careers here. Taylor Cook out of California, Macy Hunnell out of St. Louis area. Both of them had, pitcher of the week accolades throughout the season as true freshmen. So we really feel excited about the opportunity that's, in front of them. They're ready to take the next step. Macy's bigger and stronger than she was last year, and I think Taylor Cook has done kind of some of the same things. Cam Ponick is somebody that has been in the program for a couple years. Went off and played in the FGCL this summer, and so is one of the best arms throwing in that league this summer. Led her team to the championship. Is the main arm throwing for them this summer, and being able to go and see her and watch her throw this summer, she looked like the Cam that we recruited out of travel ball. I think there's everybody goes through different cycles of where it kind of clicks in for them when they get to college, and things really started to look like they were clicking for Cam this summer. Like she was finally starting to, kind of understand how to pitch and things like that. So that was really good. And then we've got two newcomers to the staff that came via the transfer portal. Kate Peters will be the veteran on the staff for us. She's a senior transfer out of Troy. She originally started her career at Lipscomb, was an all ASUN performer as a freshman, and then transferred over to Troy and is now returning back to the ASUN, with us. She's been really good for us this fall, has that experienced presence that our staff really needed. And then Kaden Camper is another one that transferred in. She's a transfer from Purdue. She's out of Virginia. We tried to recruit Kaden a little bit, coming out of high school, and she had a lot of big offers, and she was pretty focused on all that, and decided to enter the portal, and then we kind of re-engaged in conversations, and she was excited about the opportunities of coming back to UNF. She'll be a sophomore this year, so we feel like we have three really good sophomore arms. And then Cam's a junior, and then Kate Peters is the senior veteran on the staff. So Amber feels really good about our staff. I've been spending some time just down at the bullpen, obviously not helping to make them a lot better, but just kind of checking in, seeing how things are going, providing what assistance I can to them down there, and I think they're definitely ahead of where our pitching staff was last year. At this time, and we'll see how things shake out throughout the fall. But as things look right now, I mean, I think we have 5 arms that we feel really comfortable about potentially being starters for us.
Well, I remember we talked about a year ago around this time that as great as Allison was, you needed depth to get over the hump and win the conference championship and then make a run in the regionals. And I remember when we obviously hung out in Orlando when you played at the UCF tournament and talking to Coach Pfizer, that was part of the plan. Was you had a plan in that tournament. Obviously, you're trying to win games, but you wanted to use everybody in various roles because you never know. And that really paid off in the ASUN championship game when you made the decision to pull Allison in the championship game against Eastern Kentucky, went to the bullpen to get the final outs to win that championship, and it paid off in the regionals when you beat Virginia twice. So just talk about that philosophy because and Allison was the pitcher of the year, the best pitcher, but you don't get to where you get with the other arms.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we definitely had a plan from the get-go that we really wanted to develop some depth in our pitching staff. Just the season's such a long season and the ASUN grind and stuff like that. And inevitably, when you have a pitcher like Benny, you're trying to keep her as fresh as you possibly can for when you get to those moments late in the season. But we really kind of stuck to our plan from the start to finish last year in terms of, trying to develop kids in different roles. And, I know a lot of people kind of, I heard about it afterwards. I think you even asked me about it, like, how do you pull Benning in that situation? But we had kind of been building Kyla for that role all season long and putting her into those situations. So it didn't really feel like as big a moment to us in the dugout as it probably looked from the outside, if that makes sense. But yeah, I mean, and we feel really good about our pitching depth. I mean, the pitchers, the staff that we have with, we got the 5 arms, and they really kind of work off of one another, different strengths. I do think Caden Camper is going to remind some people of Benny, just in terms of, she's a tall 6'2", lanky, athletic looking kid. She does hit a little bit too as well. So I think, and she's actually wearing the same number that Benny wore, number 8. So there's definitely some similarities there. But we feel really good about our pitching staff. I mean, I think obviously, it doesn't matter if you're UNF or you're Florida, you lose somebody like Benny, you're going to feel, that absence. But we feel really good about, just like we had a plan last year on how we want to develop our pitching staff. We had a plan going throughout the year. We knew, hey, Benny's going to graduate, and we assumed at that point it's going to be on the pro ball for her. And we had a plan in place of how do you don't replace Benny with one kid. You don't even necessarily replace somebody that has her skill set, but what is our plan going to be when she's not here to make sure that we're able to have the same success we were having? And, fortunately for us, we were able to connect, what we saw after we were able to find in the portal to kind of fill in those needs.
I may have been one of those people in a hotel in Oklahoma City watching the game because you had a weather delay, of course, and I was covering the Big 12 champion, gotten back from that, and I'm like, wait, what? What's going on here? But it worked out. You brought in Kyla Berry, and you had prepared. She had been in that role because you used her all season. So I guess the question is, do you envision some certain roles similar for these pitchers this year? Could that evolve into the season? You find out, or do you think one or two pitchers may establish themselves as the go-to starters, and then you have certain pitchers as relievers? How do you envision that? You sticking to that similar to a formula there?
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll start. We actually will get into team practice next week, and I think that'll start to kind of reveal more answers for us as we get into that. But I anticipating us being able to put some type of plan very similar to what we had last year once we get a little bit more in-depth look at the different pieces we have, as to who may fit in a certain roles. But, everything we've seen so far down in the bullpens and the way our pitchers are throwing and the way they look, I think we're going into this thinking we legitimately have 5 kids that could start games and we could feel pretty good about it. So, obviously a really good problem to have, and who knows, we'll see. I guess time will tell, but maybe that's, how you replace someone like Allison Benning, who won, 40 some games over her course of her 2 years here. You're not going to get that from one person per se, but, maybe we've got a good enough staff, enough depth in our staff that we can, account for those, innings and wins.
So that's the story on the pitching side. Then you've also got the piece at the bat where she was right in the middle of the lineup, the team's big bat, but she wasn't the only bat you lost. Part of a great senior class there. Talk about the offense and the outlook there, and as well as some of the defensive positions that are probably going to be battled out in this fall.
Yeah. I think the one thing when you get to, where our season ended playing for a regional final is you get to that part of the season or that deep into a tournament where you're playing against teams that, are obviously high quality teams. You start to find out where, some of your weaknesses are that maybe you don't identify during the course of a conference season. I think the big thing for us when we left South Carolina was feeling like we need more length in our lineup. Like we need to be a little more competitive 1 through 9. And that's one of the things that we really targeted, with this off season is really creating that extra length in our lineup. I think you may know the stat, but I think there was a one point in time going into the regional final where I think our 6 through 9 hitters were like 1 for 29 or something like that. And really you got to have that length in your lineup to be able to compete at that time of the year. So that's something that we really focused on. This group that we have now currently, I think, has a lot more length than what we had, last year and really even in previous years. Last year we kind of, we had that big class the year before that had graduated. So we kind of started to transition last year to where we wanted the offensive makeup of our team to look a little bit more of how I wanted it to look, which is a little more balanced, having that speed at the top, things like that. And now we've kind of expanded on that a little bit more and added some length to our lineup. So, I think offensively we're in a really, really good place. The length in this lineup is legit. The compete level that we'll have 1 through 9 is going to be significantly improved coming off of last year. And sometimes you just got to get to that point in the season to understand what some of your weaknesses are, and I think I'm always a big believer that success leaves clues, and it's whether I'm watching what other teams are doing when they're having success and how are they building their roster, whether it's Florida and Florida State, implementing a lot of speed into their lineup and things like that. That's something we've done to do, we've really focused on adding. And, I think we've really kind of, paid attention to a lot of other teams that are having success and started to implement that into our program. And now, we've really started to expand kind of on some of those formulas and different things that we've looked at that we really felt like we needed to improve on in order to be a team that can legitimately say, we got a chance to be right back where we were last year.
Who are some of the players hitting wise that people need to watch out for? Because that's been your track record is, Navia Penrod just became a Hall of Fame player. Boom, just like all of a sudden, like, oh, wow, she's unbelievable. Allison Benning, nobody knew Allison Benning maybe, say, 2 years ago. I remember you told me, hey, watch out for this kid coming over from Oregon. She's going to be really good. But then the next thing you know, it's like, whoa, where did it come from? Who is that, whether it be a returner and or a newbie in this offense for you?
Yeah, I think it'd be a few kids, really, honestly. Some returners and then some new kids. From a returner standpoint, Kelsey Vogel is somebody who is having a really productive year for us playing out of position. Natural second baseman that we had to play at shortstop last year. And, right before the conference tournament, she ends up breaking her thumb and we lose her. And that really, we felt that impact in our lineup. She was part of that, lengthening process we had. And it really started to kind of shrink our lineup a little bit when she went down. She's back fully healthy now, looks really good in the fall. She's somebody now she's able to move back to her natural position at second base, that I think will really provide great length to our lineup. Kaylin McCarthy, is someone that, we think is just an elite, ball tracker out in center field. She's really started to take that next step in the offensive part of her game. That'll be a huge piece, for us because she's such a threat on the bases. So those are, some of the returners that we think are really going to provide big things. Grace Shaw Rocky, had an outstanding freshman year last year. She looks completely dialed in. You look at, you really want to see kids take that jump between their freshman and sophomore year. Well, Grace has really taken those strides. She looks like a totally different player. And she was a pretty good player to begin with, but she's really somebody that, we think is really going to, put up big numbers for us as, and only be in her sophomore year. So I think those are some of the key returning pieces that we had from the offensive side of it. Um, in terms of new kids, we brought in Bella Semino from FAU, all conference player from the American, was playing out of position at FAU. As a shortstop who was playing first base for them. She's been very, very good for us, early on here throughout the fall, really, really high offensive skill set. And I think she's going to turn a lot of heads when people see her playing shortstop because they're used to seeing her at first base from her time at FAU. And I mean, to steal the words from our kids whenever you hear Bella's name come up, our kids simply just respond with elite. I mean, she's a smooth defender at the shortstop position, has a really high, offensive skill set. I mean, we really think she's a, potential player of the year type player, here in the ASUN conference. I mean, she's a really, really, really good player. I mean, she's impressive to just sit back and watch her do her thing. But I think she's somebody that's going to really turn a lot of heads. People are probably somewhat familiar with her name, just being part of a very productive team at FAU and, and the impact she had, 300 hitter. I think she hit like 10 home runs, for them. But I think when people see her playing shortstop, it's just going to create a whole different dynamic of how they view her. But really, really, really good player. I mean, that was a huge recruiting, win for us. I mean, we're talking about a kid that had a lot of power four options, in the portal that, ultimately decided that, she wanted to be a part of what we were building here. And that was a huge recruiting win for us. Hannah Davila, transfer from Georgia, will be our third baseman. She's she's a third baseman that on a team that doesn't have a Bella Semino very easily could be your shortstop. Extremely athletic, third baseman, moves really well, great arm, and really has a really high offensive skill set. Ball just jumps off of her bat. Very athletic kid. I think will really, make a huge impact, on our team, our offense. So we feel really good about what we have on the left side of the infield with those two. We feel like we have 4 starters on the right side of the infield. Kelsey Vogel obviously moving back over to second base, her more natural position. Reese Green is a kid that transferred in. She's a Florida kid that transferred in from Troy. She's looked really good for us at second base. We've been really impressed with her early on. So between Kelsey and Reese, I mean, that's going to be a really fun battle to watch as it plays out throughout the fall and into spring. But we feel both of them are starting caliber players for us. And then over at first base, Taylor Shepard returns. A little bit of a down year by her standards last year, but she's looked really good in the fall. We see this as being a really good bounce back year for her. And then we brought in Aiden Allen from Arizona State, who started 40 games for an Arizona State team that was in the regional. So feel like we've got 2 options at first base that are starting caliber players. So those guys will have a huge impact on our offense and really pick up. Those are kind of the main pieces, along with Caden Oliva, who's the transfer catcher from Troy. We recruited Caden. She's a local kid out of high school. Felt like we were really close to getting her, but ultimately she decided to go to Troy and obviously left Troy after her freshman year. Had a great freshman year, hit 300 with 10 home runs as a freshman at Troy. And she's, she'll move. She played a little bit of first base at Troy. She'll move back behind the plate for us. But big, good size, athletic catcher, a lot of power in her bat. So those pieces, she's probably, for as long as I've been here, she's got the best offensive skill set of any catcher we've had. So when you start talking about where's the 16 or 20 home runs that you get from Benny, where's that going to come from? Well, You got Caden Oliva, who popped 10 at Troy, and Belsamino who popped 10 at FAU. And then you had, add in somebody like Hannah Davila, who's going to get more at bats than what she was getting at Georgia and has that same kind of potential. We're super excited about that. And then we also brought in Hallie Langford from Troy, who was also another all-conference player. Or I'm sorry, not Troy, Mercer. Who was an all-conference player at Mercer. Leadoff hitter, scored 70 runs last year at Mercer. She'll kind of slide into that leadoff spot for us. But we have, between Langford and McCarthy, we have two of the elite ball trackers in the outfield in all of college softball. We're even going to mess around a little bit in the fall with a little bit of a 5-man infield, 2-man outfield, because these guys are that elite tracking balls in the outfield. So we're getting a little creative with analytics and some different stuff like that. But they're two all conference without doubt center fielders that we'll alternate games probably in center field and then use the other one in a left or right field situation. When they're not in center field, but we feel really good about this group that we have and the production that we'll get from them.
Most athletic team roster wise?
Yeah, I think so. These, when you start talking about Hannah Davila, elite athlete, the things that Kaylin McCarthy can do are, at times don't look human. You're probably old enough to remember Ozzie Smith when he used to, run out onto the field and he'd do the handspring and the cartwheel.
The flip.
Yeah. She can do all of those things. And just covers foul pole to, Langford and her are foul pole to foul pole outfielders. They cover ground and just, if the ball's in the air, they're going to run it down. So, feel really good about, those pieces, but yeah, I think probably, we'll definitely be the most athletic team. We'll be able to run a little bit more. I wanted last year, Lulu Brock as our leadoff hitter could have easily stole 30 bases, but Allison Benning's hitting in the 2-hole. And I'm not going to invite people to just walk Benny by having her steal second base. So we'll be a little bit more heavy on the run game this year. But we're going to be awfully balanced on offense. We're going to be able to steal bases. We're going to be able to run. We're going to have kids that are going to be high rate ball in play, high speed kids. And then the middle portion of our lineup is going to have pretty impressive depth and length to it.
Lulu Brock, I'm glad you brought her up. She was big on your table setter at the top of the order. And then somebody like a Mackenzie Woods brought the intangibles behind the plate. And even a Chloe Culp, who you could start in the corner outfield, could be your first off the bench, kind of a versatile kid like that. But it sounds like you've got players that could step in those roles and maybe even a little more athletic in those roles.
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think we'll be more athletic across the board, really at all the positions. We feel really good, about what we have. I think it's going to be very easy for people to look at North Florida and say, well, can they get back to a regional and, lose a player of the caliber of Allison Benning and, can they make it back? And we feel really good about what we have and the potential to be right back where we are and have the things that are necessary or required to make it to that next step.
Among the many things of Allison's legacy at UNF, is one of them that will continue to be an impact is the impact in the fact that you've got a Davila like Allen. I remember when you got Allen, I texted you. I'm like, whoa, because I watched her at Arizona State up close, and I was like, wow, that's a big addition. Davila, when in the limited time she had at Georgia, and I'm wondering if there's a connection there of, hey, look what we did with Allison, who got the opportunity here, left Oregon to come here, and look what she became. Is that a lasting legacy where now I think you're seeing players like an Allen Davila, maybe future other players look at it like, hey, I can go to UNF and I can I know I'll be developed and got the most out of it there.
I don't think there's any question. And you brought up a great example in Hannah Davila. listen, the final two pieces of the puzzle for her, it was UNF versus Arizona. That was her final decision when she was leaving Georgia. And I know she went to Tucson, had a great visit, and felt really good about that. And we knew we had to pull out all the stops to kind of trying to be in a position to kind of win that recruiting battle. But I don't think there's any question that she sees the success that Allison Benning had coming from an Oregon, transferring to UNF, developing, getting great opportunity. I'm sure factored into her decision. And I mean, when you're talking about Arizona, I mean, that's a blue blood program. I mean, I don't, how many World Series, 9, 10, whatever it is, I mean, and, traditionally a school like UNF, if you're throwing them up against a school like Arizona, it's probably not going to go in UNF's favor. But I think, the experience that Allison had and, people seeing that, hey, you can leave a Power Five school and go to a mid-major school, be developed, get a great opportunity, and achieve all those things that you want to achieve, I would think definitely played, into that role with Hannah's recruitment.
What's the key to finding the right kid to fit your program? It's one thing to just add a player, but you've had a high success rate in the
Yeah.
portal, even recruiting, but especially in the portal specifically during your time there. I know you feel this is the best class. I think I would say this is one of the best classes in the country.
Mhm.
And deal. What's the key though to finding the right kid that fits your program? Because that's just as important, if not more important, than the actual talent, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it was Nick Saban that said these kids are in the portal for a reason. You need to make sure you're pulling them out of the portal for the right reasons. I think we really do our homework on kids that are in the portal. I think that's one of the, advantages that, I have myself in terms of coming from that travel ball world, having a lot of connections where I can reach out to these coaches that have had them at different points in their career, ask about their experiences with them and, what type of kids are they. But ultimately, like the one non-negotiable that we look for when we recruit kids to UNF is you got to be competitive because everything we do has some semblance of competition tied to it. And if you don't like competing, then this probably isn't the place for you. So we bring in those kids that expect us every year to bring in kids that are either going to make them better or going to push them to be better or are going to be better than they are. And I think that really just kind of raises that level and, kind of getting kids in today's day and age where it's, this era is very much, hey, everybody gets a trophy, everybody gets to play, everyone gets to do that. So really trying to get kids that understand that mindset and how we try to do things, I think is really been a big thing of part of our success and things that we've been able to do in terms of pulling kids out of the portal. And no question, like having a season like we had is completely opened another door to us, to these kids. I mean, when kids from UCLA that are in the portal are reaching out to us, that probably doesn't happen if we're not in a regional final, and they're watching as they're preparing for South Carolina, they're looking at who's this team playing South Carolina, North Florida. Well, now they know who we are, and things like that. But yeah, I mean, I mean, I've said it. Obviously, I was outspoken about it. I think this was one of the top portal classes in the country. I think if this class was going to a bigger school, it probably would have drawn more attention to where people would have been like, yeah, this is a top 10 class. And we understand that, but we just go out and, our kids will go out and play and they'll do what they're capable of. And I think people will start to see, yeah, hey, this was a really good transfer portal class that they brought in.
Talk about the ASUN and the scheduling. Obviously, this is the last year of the ASUN with, as we know it, with the current deal before it changes a year from now. You will be the host of the conference tournament championships this year. How many times have you hosted before?
I think it's only been once.
One other time, right? Yeah, yeah. I remember you
Yeah,
got to the final that year. That's what I
yeah,
was making sure. Yeah.
yeah. It was one of Mercy's last years. I think we hosted the tournament. We made it to the final. We lost to Liberty,
Yeah.
in the final. And if memory serves, I think Liberty was leaving the league and they were supposed to host the tournament. And because they were leaving the league, they ended up putting it back up for bid. And I think we stepped in as a
Sure.
last minute, type thing, if memory serves. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's a big deal to, be able to get the tournament here at our home facility. Obviously, the last couple years we're neutral site up in Alabama, and I think they did a really good job of hosting the tournament, and have a nice facility and everything up there. But the tournament just has a different feel when it's on on a campus site versus a neutral site location, and I think we're excited to get it back on campuses here. And the last year of the ASUN, like you mentioned, as it is structured currently with the two divisions, and obviously the merger with the WAC will take place, where a lot of teams on the other half, basically in essence, all the schools that play football are moving, into that group with the depleted WAC schools, and it'd be mostly all the Florida schools, and then I think Lipscomb's moving over since they don't play, football over to our half, and I think it'll be. I think the one thing that I think a lot of the coaches in the ASUN are looking forward to is getting back to being able to play everyone within the conference. I mean, I think that's. We understand the financial challenges that it creates, especially with how much our conference has grown, where it expands all the way from Arkansas to Kentucky to, down into Florida. It's obviously a costly thing, but I think the one thing that we've all kind of felt in some way, shape, or form is just that ability to not play everyone, within the league on a regular basis, outside of once you get to the conference tournament. But, I think, obviously being able to host the tournament, having it here, I think is a great opportunity for us. Obviously we know, as being the defending champions, that teams will be gunning for us. The fact that the tournament will be played at our facility is, probably going to put an even bigger bullseye on our back. But, we're excited about the opportunity and the challenges, and, trying to get back to, exactly where we were last year and have an opportunity to try and expand it even further.
8 teams this year.
Yeah, 8 teams, and I think it was a twofold thing. Obviously, a lot of decisions that are being made have to do with costs and everything that's, the financial impact that everybody's feeling from the settlement and things like that. But the other side of it was, the weather situation that we ran into. Having those additional teams and those extra games. The weather got bad at the end of the tournament last year, and we were in a situation where playing the championship game. I mean, it rained an unbelievable amount the night before. It rained an unbelievable amount that day. We're playing the game and the rain's falling down. I mean, it's, trying to get a game in, in those conditions, I think kind of just brought that to everybody's attention. Like, hey, it was great to have that expanded field, but adding those extra games, is it worth not being able to potentially get the entire tournament completed? So, I think that's kind of where everything kind of fell with that. But yeah, I think it'll be basically same format, just 2 less teams. I think it was only the last place team from each division didn't qualify for the tournament, and
Right.
then I think it'll be the bottom 2 this year that don't
So
qualify.
still double elimination.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Everything is.
That's good. Has there been any early conversations of what it might look like next year and beyond, with obviously the league shrinking a little bit, or is that too early?
Yeah, I think too early. We really haven't had a ton of conversation about that. I think one of the big focuses will be trying to get a schedule to where we can play everyone in the conference. Yeah. The other thing that, I know has been talked about on some levels that I think is intriguing is you'll have some built-in crossover games with the other league, as part of your schedule, but they won't count against your conference, record. So I think that'll help a little bit from a scheduling standpoint, having that kind of flexibility and ability to do that. But yeah, it's I guess the ASUN is no different from every other conference in college sports these days. It's constant change. So
No, but I'm still excited with the league, not just this year. With some great teams. Eastern Kentucky. You've had that great battle with them last year. It was one of my favorite games I watched, that championship game, and the intensity from both teams, because they were a great team too.
Yeah.
They had their own superstar player as well. I mean, you could argue the 2 best players in the conference went head to head, which was fun as a fan. But you still have them. Austin P has a good offense and things. But even coming into long term, I look at the state, teams like Stetson, like I think Shelly Cousins is very underappreciated. Quietly, 18-game improvement at Stetson,
Mm.
which she had with her first 30-win season since 2016. I remember you did not enjoy playing them 6 times, I think it was,
Yeah.
or even more than that. I forgot,
It
lost
was,
track, right?
yeah, it was seven with the
7.
conference
I remember you
tournament.
were like,
Yeah.
dude, you have no idea how hard this is. Like they're really hard, and they are. They're like, you can make the argument they're maybe a few swings away and a couple games away from being in the mix to make the tournament.
Right.
How they play. You got FGCU now with Lindsay Fico coming off the job she did at Mercer.
Yep.
Start. So this league, I think, is still very healthy and can easily be a top 8 league moving forward, even with the changes.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think we're set up to be in a good spot, with our sport and softball. Obviously, I really like the league with what we have now. I mean, we've obviously developed a bit of a great rivalry with Eastern Kentucky over the past several years. And hopefully that's something that we can continue, through this new consortium with them being in the other league, but still affiliated with, our conference. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of really good softball programs in our league, and I expect that that'll just continue to grow as our sport continues to evolve.
All right, here we go. I'm gonna hold my breath here. Cause you non-conference, you're not shy. You play
Mm,
anybody anywhere.
mm,
Obviously the schedule's not out as we record this, and I know you're still working on some things, might finalizing things, so I will respect that. But what can you tell us, and from a non-conference schedule that fans can look forward to? Because, like I said, you don't like last year's a great example. You hosted Arkansas, for example, right? You've played Florida on a home and home. You've played
mm.
UCF. You've played, the list is lengthy.
Yeah.
So just kind of give us a tease, if you will, for what we can expect this upcoming year.
Yeah, it'll be more of the same. I mean, we're gonna continue to, put our name out there and try and, compete against, anybody who's, available to play. And we'll continue the home and home with Florida, that we're doing. We got road games scheduled, at Florida State, at UCF. We'll be at Grand Canyon, which I think will be a really sneaky good mid-major game, out in Arizona that we're really excited about, going out there and, competing against them. And then we'll open the season, here on opening night, Thursday night with Auburn at home. So, last year we opened opening night at Florida on the road. And, this year we have an opportunity to have an SEC team coming into our place for opening night. So, we think a lot of great opportunities, for our team. Our kids obviously are excited about coming here and playing in those kind of games, and we're really fortunate to have an opportunity to have some of those places or some of those schools come and visit our place, and a chance for our team, our fans to come out and see us against really good competition.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I mean, is that the biggest home opener in program history? I mean,
I
since you've been there.
Yeah, I mean, we've never played on opening night. Last year was the first time we've ever played on opening night, and that was on the road at Florida. So, I think it's safe to say that that'll be a pretty big deal, having an SEC team come into our place on an opening night. I mean, it's Friday tends to be that day where everybody gets going and there's a lot of games, a lot of action. That tends to be a lot of teams opening days. So you're one of, potentially a handful of teams that are actually playing on opening night. And to have it be, against an SEC team at your place, another program that's obviously had great success and is on the rise, and, things. It's, another great opportunity that we're, looking forward to.
One of the uniqueness of having success is your name gets floated. Like this off season, your name got linked to jobs, and I remember because you're like, you would ask me like, what is this? Where's this coming from? Like what are you talking about? So this was like kind of the first off season where you started, kind of experiencing. But that's the positive of success. You signed a contract extension at UNF, lengthy. Just talk about the commitment from the school, you committing to them, and what was it like this off season to start hearing your names for things, even if you knew it weren't real, but people are trying to link you up to jobs, openings because of the success you've had.
Yeah, it was obviously very humbling. It was interesting. You get random calls from random numbers, and whether it's agencies or agents that want to represent you, or it's so and so reaching out in regards to, this potential opening, and what's your level of interest, and is this something you would consider, and different things like that. It was really an interesting summer, I think, in that regard. But I've always had a really good relationship with Nick Morrow, our AD here, and I mean, when he hired me, he made his um, his wishes very well known, that I want you to elevate the softball program, and I think we've done a really good job. With that so far. I still think there's work to be done. And we're excited about the challenges of, continuing that, and, just, sat down, Nick, obviously, once our season wrapped up, I give him credit. He gave me a couple of weeks just to kind of, well, he thought gave me a couple of weeks just to kind of try and, reset and collect. But like I said, we went right to work on, there wasn't really much off time. But when we finally sat down, and he just kind of talked about, um, you know, obviously he's excited about where we're at and where we're going. And he was really excited about, the potential of us continuing it, and, really developing it even further. And, I mean, he's often said that he thinks that we could be a team that's regularly in the regionals, and I think he's very committed to our program and providing the resources that are needed in order for us to do that. So, it was a really, really good conversations, with him. And in those regards, I really, obviously, I think we have a really good, relationship, and working relationship. And, he understands my, my quirkiness, and my different, ways of doing things and stuff like that. I mean, I'll give you a perfect example. I mean, we didn't play, we weren't scheduled to play until Thursday at the conference tournament, and we were the first team to show up at the conference tournament. And because, I'm very into routines and keeping our kids in the set routines and structure and things like that. And, he understands that about me, and, it's very easy. And, this world of college athletics where it's, everybody's trying to save money here and there. He could have said, hey, like, you're not playing until Thursday. I need you to leave on Tuesday, as opposed to, Sunday night or whatever it is. But, he understands, the way I feel about routine and keeping our kids in a set, routine, and way of going about our things, and, allowed us to, stick to that, and just have a really good relationship and understanding of, I think each other from that sense, that, makes our relationship, really, productive for both of us. And, obviously we spent a lot of time, going back and forth, but he made it be known that, he wants me here as long as I'm willing to be here. And, but also understood the opportunities that were presenting itself. And, just took a very proactive approach, and, like, hey, let's have open conversation, open dialogue, and finding something that's beneficial for both of us that we can both agree on. And, it took some time going back and forth with different ideas and different things. And, eventually we were able to, get to a point where, we were able to agree on something that we both felt good about. And, and a big part of that for me was, my two assistants, Mario and Amber, and, them wanting them to, continue to be here, and making sure they felt taken care of, and, things like that. And, I think we've got a really good group. And, I think I've always been somebody that believes that the people that have success are part of staffs that are together for a while, and, understand, how to work off of one another and feed off of one another. And I think we've got a really good dynamic with that here. And, that was really important, for me going throughout this whole process. And, being very open with Mario and Amber about, hey, like, what do we need for you guys to be happy, and so on and so forth. And, thankfully Nick was, on the same page with, all of that, and we were able to, get something done that was, I think good for everybody.
Yeah, no, your staff's great. Mario's great. Got to meet him. Got to a little bit last season when you were in Orlando in that tournament. He's a big kind of a key cog in the staff there. And with
Sure.
Amber, obviously the great job as a rising pitching coach, and the fact that you allow her to still play professionally. She's doing great with OKC Spark. It's a big plus there because it helps her
Mhm.
be a coach. As she's told me, her still playing helps her be a coach because it reminds, refresh, keeps her mechanics refreshed
Yeah.
and from experience. So
Yeah.
it's big to keep that nucleus together. There is a good perfect fit, I think, from a
Yeah.
staff standpoint. And I know you got a lot of big plans and big events that part of the growth of the program, and one of them is in November. You tell us about this big event you've got planned in November.
Yeah, so we started an event last year, Dinner on the Diamond. We had really good success with it our first year, kind of getting it up and running. And, we're going to do that again this year in November, November 15th, which will be a Saturday night. We actually wrap up our fall season. I want to say that Friday before. So it kind of puts a bow tie on the end of the fall for us. And it's just kind of a big event where we're able to get obviously all our players' families and things like that to come in. We eat a meal on the diamond. We have an MC that kind of hosts, the event. Usually Nick Moore, our AD, does kind of a State of the Union address, and then they usually ask me to, do something similar. And we kind of, do all that. And it's just a great opportunity to get all our alums, to come back. And this year, obviously coming off the season we'll have our ring ceremony and everything in conjunction with that. So it'll be an opportunity for last year's kids to come back and, kind of reunite and, get their rings and, kind of reminisce and really just kind of, pass on those last words of wisdom to this year's team to kind of, encourage them. But we're really trying to push this year to get all of our alumni to come back. We really, and I said this after, we won the championship game in Alabama to, I mean, people have been trying to get this thing through the finish line for years, whether it was players or, former coaches, Marcy and, people like that. And, we've been close and always came up short and, really want this to be a celebration, not only for this team and receiving their rings, but we want it to be something that all our alums feel, and come back and really, relish being a part of it. And, it's just like I said after that game, it was all their hard work and everything they've done that laid the foundation that we built this house on. And, really just want to try and get everyone to come back and really feel a part of that and kind of enjoy, the night of festivities.
And open to the fans, public, if they
Yeah.
register, right? Tell the audience
Yeah.
for where they can get more information.
Yeah, so I know there's on our social sites, Osprey Softball on Twitter, or I'm sorry, on Instagram, Osprey Softball on Twitter. It's all posted all up on there. Amber's done a really good job of kind of coordinating this event and putting it together. So if anybody has any questions, they can always reach out to Amber or, Madison Shemitz, who's kind of come on board in a program operations role for us, and they can provide assistance with that. But we've obviously got a lot of loyal fans. I think we picked up a lot of fans along the way with that run we were on last year. So if they want to come out and spend another moment with Team 34 and see them receive their rings and things like that, it be a great opportunity and a great event. And we've got some really good sponsors here throughout Jacksonville who have done a really good job of helping us with the event. So something we are looking forward to.
Awesome. I hope it's a big success. All right, I'm gonna have to tease Amber about that. I didn't know she was helping running that. She didn't mention that when
Yeah.
I had her on earlier in the year. I'm gonna have to tease her about that.
Yeah, she's low key. She's got a pretty heavy set of planner type skills. Like if she decides she doesn't want to be in coaching, she might have a future as like a party planner or something like that. It's definitely, those things are definitely in her wheelhouse.
Yeah, she just got inducted to her high school Hall of Fame, so
I
congrats to
saw
her on
that.
that. That was
Yeah.
pretty good for her. Their
Yeah.
events there. Last thing, my Panthers are pretty banged up. We're probably gonna lose Barkov for the year. Just got hurt on first day of training camp. We're without Kachuk for a while, so the door's there for your Rangers. Do you have an
Yeah.
opportunity here or no?
Yeah. Bounce back year. That was obviously a disappointing year last year. Obviously made some changes in the offseason, moved out some veterans, but that Barkov injury was big. You don't lose a piece like that, more than likely for a year. Even Kachuk, I know, is going to be sidelined for a while. So, But I don't know. I mean, Maurice is such a good coach, and obviously Bobrovsky's such a good goalie that it wouldn't surprise me in the least bit if they're able to keep that ship afloat until those guys are able to make their way back into the mix and probably inevitably still be there at the end. So, yeah, optimistic going into this season for the Rangers, and need to see an improvement coming off of last year. Not making the playoffs, and really just a disappointing season really throughout.
Yeah. That had a
But
sting because I still remember you and I hanging out at like at a restaurant there at a hotel watching the Rangers playoffs against the Capitals way back.
yeah,
So
Rangers
I know that.
Capitals, yeah.
So I was wondering, like, are you going to be able to sneak out, watch them in person? I know you try to do that if it works out scheduling wise against the Lightning.
Yeah, I try to get over to Tampa to see them. They've been. I know this year they've got the game with the Panthers, right? The outdoor game,
Yes.
which I think is right around the new year.
Yeah.
So potentially looking at that as a potential option to get down to Sunrise.
Ooh.
Yeah,
You're
I
gonna have
did
to let
down.
me know on that. You're gonna have to let me know on that.
Yeah, I will. I will let you know. Actually, a couple years ago when Michigan was in the Orange Bowl, we did kind of the double header thing. We went down and did the Rangers, Panthers, and then 2 days later, I think it was Michigan, and I forget who it was in the Orange Bowl. I think it was when they played Georgia in
Georgia in
the
the
playoff.
playoff. Yeah, semi.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we did that. It lined up nicely. We were able to do that. So, but yeah, always. That's the one thing I wish we had in Jacksonville that we don't have is NHL hockey.
Yeah, I want to. Yeah, definitely let me know because I'm fascinated. You as a purist hockey guy,
Mm,
how you would compare an outdoor hockey game versus the indoor? So I'm actually fascinated by that. And by the way, I'm just gonna speak for me. Panther fans. I'm happy with the 2 cups. Like I'm spoiled. I'm
yeah,
good. Like I
yeah,
didn't think we would ever win 2 cups, and we had to go through the Rangers in one of those years, which
yeah.
not to rub it in, but
Yeah,
uh,
no, I mean, they've got quite the well-oiled machine down there, and I mean, I do think, Maurice is a great coach, and he's obviously great for the sound bites. I mean, the people in your business obviously
yeah,
love him for that, but it wouldn't surprise me one bit with the talent that they still have. I mean, it's going to be tough to lose, Barkov for the year, Kachuk for the first part of the season or whatever, but they still got Marchand and all those guys, so they'll
yeah.
be right in the thick of it.
They were due to have some injuries. I mean, they've played in 3 straight Stanley Cups
Yeah,
finals. That's a
yeah,
lot of hockey.
yeah,
Like I feel like the Lightning have kind of dipped since their
yeah,
run too. So the
yeah. I
cool
think it,
stat, the cool stat is like that I like to keep track of is we've had a Florida team represent in the Stanley Cup final every year this decade.
that's impressive. Yeah.
We're the
I
hockey
didn't realize
capital
that.
state, Jeffrey.
Yeah,
We're the hockey
yeah.
state capital right here.
You got to rub that into Benny, being from Minnesota. I mean,
I
she
know.
likes to stay claim to some of those things.
I
So
know she does.
yeah, so yeah, I would not be the least bit surprised that the Panthers are still not part of the conversation.
All
And
right.
listen, I mean those Florida battles, those playoff battles with the Lightning and the Panthers those are
Yeah.
must see TV. I mean, those are you get your money's worth and you go to those games.
Don't get me started. Like I actually had tickets for Game 6, thinking that they would go deep in the series. But
Mm,
then the Panthers won it in 5, so I didn't like. It was a good problem in that the Panthers won, but it was like, no, I wanted to go see a playoff game in person. But
yeah,
it is what it
yeah,
is.
yeah.
Hey, is your guy JJ McCarthy gonna get healthy? What are we doing here?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I obviously great first night, and then Mario's a big Bears fan, so
Oh,
I
oh,
was letting him hear about that, and then JJ didn't have a great game week 2, and you know, but yeah, hopefully he can stay healthy. I mean, he's obviously battled injuries, and obviously did a lot of great things for Michigan, and that going to that national championship game in Houston. It was him and Michael Penix, obviously at Washington. But yeah, hopefully he can stay healthy. I mean, he's a talented kid, and another one of those guys with that hockey background, hockey mentality. So, um, I'm looking forward to him. Hopefully, being able to rebound and get healthy.
health will definitely be very key for him there as that gets going over there. All right, my last question. as this fall plays out and you get to February, what are some things you're looking forward to finding out about this group that you think will be very important once you get to the season?
Yeah, I think leadership is going to be big. I mean, we've had some ups and downs with that already this fall. And the kid that probably doesn't get enough credit for last year's success, because when you look at her stats, she's not going to blow you away with 12 home runs or a 350 average. Is Hadley Reichert. I mean, she's just an elite leader. And she's as good as Benny was and all the things that she brings to the table. I mean, Hadley's loss is just as noticeable as Benny not being here, just from that leadership standpoint. So I think that'll be something, that we'll really, be looking at, throughout the fall. But I think this team is just as hungry as last year's team was. Kelsey Vogel obviously had all that postseason stuff taken from her, and she's excited to get back to it and actually be able to play in it. Some of these kids that transferred in came in because the expectation is to win championships, and that's what they want to be a part of. So I think some key, positional battles. We do have really good depth. We feel good about, the depth we have at some positions. I think seeing how our pitching staff continues to evolve, and how we're able to segment out some of those roles. Do we really have 5 starters? Is somebody else going to be better served in kind of that Kyla Berry role? Seeing how some of those things shake out. But yeah, I mean, it's we're kind of excited to get started. I mean, we've been kind of grinding on individuals and really kind of, teaching kids to play the game the way we want to play it, and so on and so forth. And, now we're ready to kind of get everyone out there as a collective group, and let them kind of really gel and do their thing together. I will tell you, I took them bowling last Friday. You'll get a kick out of this. We got some bowlers on this team. We had 4 kids that were hovering around 200 games at the bowling alley.
200, whoa.
Yeah. So, but I mean, the thing that I love to see is I wanted to put them in a different kind of environment, and I wanted to see if they still embrace the competition. And we had them split off into 4 different teams, and it was feisty from start to finish. So I was really encouraged by seeing that. But yeah, really, really good group of kids. I mean, we're really excited about what we have, and looking forward to getting it out on the field, and getting some games under our belt.
Bowling enthusiast here you got on the team here. I mean, that's,
I mean, I one kid claimed that she had a some experience bowling. Caden Camper said that she's, I don't know if she's got her own, ball and shoes, or, if she's that in depth into it, but she said she knew her way around a bowling alley, and she definitely looked like she did. I don't know if Bella Shimino, I don't know if she's a bowler, but I mean, she was one of those kids that was hovering around 200, and I mean, looked like she knew what she was doing. Maybe just good athleticism on her part. But yeah, I mean, and this transfer class, when we talked about how good softball players are, a lot of these 200 bowlers were hiding out in this transfer portal class. So it's a multi-talented class.
Could this be added in the itinerary on some of the trips? Like, I remember when I traveled with, Coach Gillespie, like on some dead time, they would go to like a David Bus, someplace bowling alley and bowl just to keep the camaraderie within the team stuff. And the competition was the winner got ice cream. I don't know if we're going to go that far, but it sounds like this could get pretty competitive here.
Yeah, there's been a lot of, back and forth. We had one team that went 2-0, one team went 0-2, the other, and we had 2 teams that were 1-1. So I mean, there's a lot of, I definitely think there's a rematch on the horizon, with a little more bragging rights at stake. And, maybe we'll do something where, the losing team has to help the managers with laundry, or put something on the line here, or, something like that. But yeah, it was definitely intense. They were getting after it pretty good. So, wow. I love to see that competition carrying over, and it wasn't, you're waiting for that. We don't have to practice today. We're going bowling or whatever, but they never turned it off. They were at one another from start to finish. So I thought that was really encouraging.
The competitive juices. That's a good sign. It's a very good sign there. That is UNF head coach Jeff Conrad joining us here on In the Circle on D1 Softball, powered by 643. Coach, Hey, I always enjoy this. Is our annual get together. We went a little long today, but you had multiple people interview today. Fairness.
Yeah,
So that
yeah,
like I said, I didn't go as hard on you as your own former player did. But that's the price. Go figure.
yeah.
Hey, always enjoyed talking to you, man. Like I said, I was happy for you. We'll be in touch. Thanks for doing this always, and we'll catch up soon.
All right, sounds good. Appreciate it. Always fun, Eric.